Now, a new red flag is in, and it suggests the economy is cooling more sharply than expected. The latest Purchasing Managers Index, or PMI, shows Philippine manufacturing falling to 47.4 in November, its steepest decline in more than 4 years. S&P Global points to weak demand, shrinking output, and drop-offs in new orders, with some manufacturers also hit by typhoon-related disruptions. The Philippines is now the only economy in Southeast Asia in contraction, while Thailand, Vietnam, Indonesia, Malaysia, and Myanmar all expanded last month. Analysts warn that the downturn could deepen if confidence remains weak. Joining us now is the Chairwoman Elizabeth Lee of the Federation of Philippine Industries to help us understand what this means for manufacturers, jobs, and for the broader outlook. Hi, Beth. Good morning, and thanks for being here with us.
Hi, Mikey. Good morning.
Okay,
Pleasure
Beth.
to be here.
Yeah, let's start with the figures. ASEAN growing by 53. The Philippines, 4-year low at 47.4%. Were you shocked by these figures, and what do they tell you?
Yes, it's actually a serious warning sign. A PMI of 47.4 shows that manufacturing is contracting, and then, the Philippines is the only ASEAN economy in that position. So it's a competitiveness hit. The PMI, it tracks new orders, output, employment, and we know that business is highly sensitive to frictions, and corruption is one major friction. So
Yeah.
businesses are, holding on. It means tighter margins, and it's cautious wait and see for expansion.
Yeah, that number really reflects that cautious wait and see. And what's interesting was this happened coming into the holiday season, coming into December. It's showing us that they dipped into inventories, but they didn't replenish. And what does that tell you? What does that tell you about what December PMI could be?
Yeah, that's one of the interesting thing that happened now is that normally you would actually replenish your inventory. That just goes with the way business goes. But this is the first time that you actually dipped into your inventories without replenishing it fast enough. So that means that demand is actually weak, and you don't want to be holding on to too much inventory when demand is actually weak. But the good news is, based on the same PMI index and survey, is that there's also a silver lining, because business optimism for the next 12 months is actually positive. And one of the things that came on is that we were recently, as a country, rated, our investment credit rating was triple B plus, which is also good. But that means we have to work harder and get resolution on this corruption scandal soon.
Beth, if not for this corruption scandal, everyone in the ASEAN grew in November except us. If not for this corruption scandal, would we have grown as much as the rest of ASEAN?
Yes, in fact, according to the former DOF Secretary, Ralph Recto, he actually stated that if the money was actually spent on infrastructure, the economy, we would be growing more than 6% GDP. Right now, we're looking at maybe ending the year, based on the economies, the analyst is about 5%, but we could have grown more than 6%.
Okay.
So weak demand is actually the visible drag, but confidence shock from the corruption scandal amplified it. But there are a lot of reforms that's being done now. If I could, state that, that's one of the things that the businesses are holding on to, is the reforms that are being done now under DOF Secretary Frederick,
Yes.
discipline and transparency.
Yes.
DIR Commissioner Mendoza, he suspended the abusive LOA. That's a very big plus. DOC Commissioner Ariel Nepomuceno, digitalization and risk-based inspections. DPWH, Vince Ethan, tightening the procurement rules and imposing standards. These are the kind of things, and plus the ICI, these are the things that the businesses actually are holding on and looking forward to resolution to the corruption scandal.
Yeah, that's right. I want to drill into the BIR suspension of all audits and LOAs after the complaints of massive abuse and extortion. The
Yes.
suspension is corrective, Beth, but it also disrupts ongoing audits and clearances. How is the manufacturing sector reading this? Of course, it's a sign in the, it's a a step in the right direction, but how are they really reading this?
Yeah, it's actually a good sign. The fact that there was this broad suspension, that indicates the scale of disruption in business that called for this broad suspension. And there really is a need to recalibrate the audit activity to minimize disruption to businesses. You know, Mikey, I there's some businesses that actually complain. They get letters from the BIR that are not even signed. And sometimes they would ask for a document that are as far back as 10, 12, or 14 years for a document. And clearly, these are harassment measures that are being done by bad actors that is within the agency. Now, of course, the majority of the people who work in the BIR, in the agencies, are actually doing what they can to do what is right. It is the small number of bad actors that's giving the BIR a bad rap.
Yeah.
So what happened now with the uh, suspension of the LOA? This is a good thing because businesses now have the time to take a look at how they can have their business grow instead of taking time off to actually answer these ridiculous letters
Yeah.
that are
The love letters, the so-called love
yeah,
letters of the BIR are infamous, and there are many horror stories. But as
yeah.
we move forward with the suspension of these LOAs, do you think that the worst has passed? All of the gravity of the extortion, all that nastiness. Do you think the worst has passed, Beth?
Yeah, I think with the reforms, I think, of course, the new DOF now, Secretary Boy is serious, coming from the business sector also. He knows how this works, and they're serious into making reforms. So that's what we are looking forward to: transparency, accountability, and real reform. Then we can get on with growth. We're actually being, stunted because of this corruption, but the Philippines actually is on a path of growth. So we're looking forward to those implementation, those real reforms, and that's going to bring a lot of investment to growth for even for local business.
On the accountability front, Beth, do you think that Malacanang has done enough? I mean, what's the beat on the street when it comes to manufacturers? Do they want a change in leadership? Or are they prepared to ride this presidency out until 2028? What are you hearing?
No, actually, for business, business goes on regardless of who sits in Malacanang. Now, what's important with what happened now is that the president himself was the whistleblower, and he blew the top off of this systemic corruption, and that's I think that's quite courageous. And the message is, and according to his own statement, he's going to finish what he started. And what we're hoping for is that it would be sooner than later. So I think with that, you know, building trust, because there are some people that are being charged. So one of the messages would be, corruption doesn't pay in the end. So this will, reshape trade, business, and trust. So, the president actually has a very good opportunity to leave a legacy that will change the way our country does business, how our country does trade. So I think it's a good thing.
Yeah, Beth, going back to the BIR suspension of LOA audits, can you, give us an idea of what brought us to that point? More horror stories. What have you heard? Tell us about the worst that you've heard from the BIR in terms of extortion, just so that we have a reading on what that's like and how bad it was, so we never go back there.
Yeah, it could be as simple as a letter that is written to you that your business would receive. The letters are not even signed. And there are stories wherein they are just waiting for you not to answer because you're supposed to answer within a certain period. And if you don't answer, you can be penalized and even incarcerated. So they even put a quote there on the BIR rule. So it's really meant as a scare tactic, as harassment, and asking for documentation that is even, older than 10 years, 12 years. That's tantamount to harassment. But then again, with what's happening now with the reform, traceability, accountability, digitalization is key because digitalization actually is a game changer. And discretion is the oxygen of corruption. So if we remove it with standards and traceability, the rot of corruption suffocates. And
Yeah.
that goes for the BIR and the POC, even the DPWH. Anywhere where there is discretion, that's where corruption actually builds. So what government is actually doing now with new reforms is actually to stifle that, and that is good.
Yeah.
It builds trust, consistency for businesses, so we can finally move on with the growth that we are waiting to see.
Okay. And Beth, are you happy with the direction of Secretary Go and the new DOF chief? As the new
Yes,
DOF chief, yeah.
yes, we are, and they understand and they actually listen. That's why this broad stoppage of LOA is actually a good thing because they heard from the businesses, and a majority of the businesses are MSM, and they're the ones who do not have connections, who do not have much money, and it's like extortion. So it's really not good for the country. But
Yeah.
then again, I must say, it really is the majority of the people in the agencies want to do good. It really is the small minority that gives our agencies the bad rap.
All right, Beth, thank you so much with FPI. Thank you so much for sharing your insights with us. We look forward to hearing more from you and as we open a better chapter for the Philippines on that
Thanks
front.
for having me. Yes, thank you. Thanks, Mikey.